2 years ago, a video like this one was a highlight reel. Robots doing backflips in a parking lot. A robot face pulling expressions at a trade show. Clips engineered to travel, and almost none of it ever left the lab. 2026 is different, and you can measure the difference. One company is now building a humanoid robot every hour. Another shipped more than 5,500 of them last year and just went public in Shanghai. A third is listing on the Nasdaq. Tesla shut down 2 of its own car lines to make room. And at Hyundai, the labor union has formally blocked robots from entering the factory floor. And the money moved before the robots did. Humanoid-specific startups took in roughly $4.3 billion in 2025, inside more than $8.5 billion that went into robotics startups overall. Figure alone is reportedly valued at $39 billion, which is more than most of the car companies it wants to sell to. That last one is the tell, because nobody negotiates with a gimmick. Here are the 8 things that actually happened. We start with the least glamorous and most important story of the year. Figure did not unveil a new robot. It unveiled a factory. And in its own production update, published on April 29, it put a number on the table that is genuinely hard to argue with. Figure's BotQ facility went from building 1 Figure 03 per day to 1 per hour. That is a 24 times increase in throughput, in under 120 days. And they say they have delivered more than 350 of their 3rd-generation robots so far. The supporting numbers are the ones that convinced me. End-of-line first pass yield above 80% and improving weekly. A battery line running at 99.3% first pass yield across more than 500 packs. Over 9,000 actuators built across 10 different designs. 150 networked workstations. 80 functional tests on every robot before it is signed off. And it is not staying inside the building. In late June, 40 Figure 03 units went to work at BMW's plant in Spartanburg, South Carolina. That followed an 11-month pilot with the previous model, which contributed to the production of more than 30,000 BMW X3s. The 03 itself has tactile sensors in the hands, cameras in the palms, wireless charging, and speech-to-speech audio. Now the honest part. Every one of those numbers is Figure describing Figure, and no independent audit exists. And a line capable of 12,000 robots a year is capacity, not output. Figure's stated goal is 12,000 robots a year off this first line, and 100,000 over the next 4 years. Those are goals. 350 is the number that has actually been built. Story 2 is the biggest bet anyone has placed on any of this, and it is going badly enough to be interesting. On the first quarter earnings call this year, Elon Musk confirmed that Optimus production begins at Fremont in late July or August. To make room, Tesla built its last Model S and Model X in early May. 14 years of Model S, 11 years of Model X. Both ended, and the entire production line torn down to the ground so it could be rebuilt for a robot. Now listen to how Tesla itself describes what happens next. Musk said initial output will be, quote, quite slow, and that the production rate this year is, quote, literally impossible to predict, because Optimus has 10,000 unique parts on an entirely new line. You will hear other channels tell you Tesla is making 1 million robots a year. That is a target, not a shipment. Musk wants 1 million a year at Fremont by late 2026, and 10 million a year in Texas by 2027. Realistic output this year is in the low thousands. And the version 3 reveal has slipped again, pushed later into the year for the second time. So the accurate version of this story is not the million. It is that the most valuable car company on Earth ended 2 flagship vehicles for a robot it has not shown yet. Story 3. At CES in January, Boston Dynamics said it would ship the first production version of the new electric Atlas this year. Not a prototype. A product. And the entire 2026 run is already fully committed. Committed to 2 customers. Fleets are going to Hyundai's new robot Metaplant Application Center and to Google DeepMind. Which is a genuine plot twist, because Google owned Boston Dynamics and sold it back in 2017. 9 years later, they are building the next Atlas brain together. That application center opens this year, and the thinking behind it is smarter than a demo. Data collected from real Hyundai factories feeds into a controlled facility, where Atlas trains on complex tasks before it ever touches a live production line. Boston Dynamics is also working on the AI side with Toyota Research Institute, and with the Robotics and AI Institute, which Hyundai funds. So Atlas is being trained by a consortium, rather than a single lab. That is a different strategy to Figure and Tesla, who are both building their brain in-house. The scale Hyundai is talking about is the headline. At CES, the group committed 25,000 Atlas robots to its own plants, and said it is building a factory capable of 30,000 humanoids a year by 2028. Atlas arrives at Meta Plant America in Savannah, Georgia, in 2028, and Kia's Georgia plant in 2029. Keep the dates in view, though. Everything past this year is a plan. And fully committed for 2026 means a modest number of units going to two partners, one of which is Boston Dynamics' own corporate parent. There is also a problem with that 25,000 figure, and we come back to it at the end. Story 4 is the one that changes the price of everything. In March, Unitree filed to go public on Shanghai Star Market. On July 3, that listing was approved. Roughly $618 million raised, and it cleared registration faster than any company in that market's history. The prospectus is the interesting document. Audited 2025 revenue of 1.7 billion yuan, up 335% year-on-year. Profitable since 2020. And more than 5,500 humanoid robots shipped in a single year, which is more than Tesla. Then the prices. Their H2, a full-size industrial humanoid, sells for $29,900. The lineup runs from about $4,900 at the bottom, to $650,000 at the top. 2 years ago the shock in this space was a Unitree at $16,000. The latter just kept extending downward. And they are not alone. On March 29, a line in Guangdong started running, built by Liju Robotics and Dongfang Precision. One humanoid every 30 minutes, up to 10,000 a year. Agibot announced its 15,000th robot in June, with units working on tablet production lines. Here is the correction, and it is a big one. CNN reported at the end of June that China's robot rental market is exposing the limits of these machines. The country built the capacity. It is now looking for buyers. Building 10,000 robots a year and selling 10,000 robots a year are very different problems. Story 5 is the first one on this list you can actually buy for your house. 1X opened orders for Neo, a home humanoid. $20,000 for early access with priority delivery this year, or $499 a month on subscription. The specification tells you what it is for. 1.65 meters tall, and just under 30 kilograms. That is deliberately light, roughly half what an industrial humanoid weighs, because this thing operates in an unstructured house with people and pets in it, and mass is what makes a robot dangerous. First deliveries are scheduled for the United States and Canada in the second half of this year, with other markets from 2027. 3 colors: tan, gray and dark brown. It is a consumer product with a checkout page. And now the catch, which is the entire story. Early units rely on scheduled remote human teleoperation for anything Neo cannot do by itself yet. That means a person, somewhere else, driving the robot inside your home, seeing what it sees, at an agreed time. 1X has been open about this, and reporting has been blunt about what it means. This is an experimental learning platform, not a finished autonomous robot. Your house is the training data. Whether that is a reasonable trade for $20,000 is genuinely your call. But you should know it before you order, not after. Story 6 explains all 5 of the stories before it. The bodies did not suddenly get better. The software did. And the specific breakthrough has a name. Vision Language Action Models. Systems that take a camera feed and an instruction in plain English, and output motion. NVIDIA's Isaac GR00T and 1.7 went into early access on April 17. 3 billion parameters, open, and commercially licensed. The headline advance is called EgoScale, and it is pre-training on 20,854 hours of human first-person video, across more than 20 task categories. Robots learning by watching footage shot from inside a human's point of view. Google DeepMind's Gemini Robotics is the other half of this. Trained on Aloha research arms, then adapted to a two-armed Franca, and to Atronic's Apollo humanoid. There is an on-device version too, for when latency or connectivity will not allow a round trip to a data center. And here is the number that should stop you. Gemini Robotics adapts to a brand new task with as few as 50 to 100 demonstrations. Not weeks of programming. 50 examples. Physical intelligence is chasing the same goal from the other direction, selling the brain rather than the body. There is already a successor in the pipeline. GR0OTN2 is built on what NVIDIA calls a world action model, and the claim attached to it is that it succeeds at new tasks in new environments more than twice as often as the leading vision language action models. Twice as often is real progress. It is also not the same thing as reliability. The money followed immediately. General Intuition raised $320 million to train these models partly on video game data. Neuralink Robotics went after up to $1.4 billion. Standard Bots raised $200 million at a $1 billion valuation. And the honest limit. 50 demonstrations is per task, in lab conditions. Generalizing to a room the robot has never seen is still the unsolved part. Story 7 is my favorite, because it is the direct sequel to the moment that made videos like this popular in the first place. 2 years ago, the marvel in this space was a robot face with 24 motors in it, pulling human expressions. In 2026, the marvel is a hand. CES in January pivoted away from full humanoids and put dexterous hands at the center of the show, for a good engineering reason. The hand is the interface. It sets the ceiling on everything else the robot can do. On the floor, hands folded paper pinwheels, folded clothes, and played ping pong. A company called Real Hand played piano live at the show. Not one key at a time. And elsewhere on the floor, four-handed piano duets. Fine motor articulation that engineers at that same show 2 years earlier would have called impossible. Sharpa demonstrated a hand called North with a reaction time of 0.02 of a second. That number matters more than it sounds. Below roughly 0.05 of a second, a robot stops reacting to what already happened, and starts intercepting what is about to. Figures 03, meanwhile, has cameras inside its palms. Vision from inside the grip itself. Now the honest limit, and it is a real one. A piano is a rigid object in a perfectly known position that never moves. A warehouse shelf is not, and neither is your kitchen. A stage demo proves the hardware can move. It does not prove the hand can cope with mess. Story 8 moves from robots you look at, to hardware that goes inside a person. In 2024, the moment everyone shared was Nolan Arbaugh, paralyzed, playing online chess with his thoughts. That was the proof. In 2026 it is the baseline, and the story is scale. As of September last year, Neuralink reported 12 patients with severe paralysis implanted, across several countries. That figure has since reached 20 implants globally, 7 of them in the United Kingdom. 20 people currently living with the device. 2 things are supposed to change this year. Neuralink says it is moving to mass production of the implant, and to automated surgery, with a robot performing the insertion rather than a surgeon doing it by hand. The company secured $650 million in June to fund exactly that. And there is a second device. Blindsight aims to restore vision to people who are completely blind, bypassing the eye entirely, and its first patient trial is scheduled for this year. If that works even partially, it is a far bigger story than the chess ever was. Now the number you will see repeated everywhere. Musk said back in mid-2024 that more than 1,000 human implants were achievable in 2026. Reporting at the time was explicit that this was an optimistic target, not a commitment. The actual figure right now is 20. Both numbers are true. Only one of them is real, and the gap between them is the most useful thing on this entire list. Step back for a second, because all 8 of those stories share 3 things. First, the unlock was software. Story 6 is the reason stories 1 through 5 happened at all, and it happened quietly, in model releases nobody made a highlight reel out of. Second, the winners are not the companies with the best stage demo. They are the ones with a factory and a customer. Figure has BMW. Agility has GXO. Boston Dynamics has Hyundai. Unitree has a price list. Third, and this needs saying out loud, almost every impressive number in this video is a company describing itself. There is no independent audit of humanoid uptime anywhere. And the question the 2024 version of this video ended on, whether robots deserve rights, is not really the question anymore. It has become simpler and much more awkward. Who is on the other end of it? Which brings us to the part that does not fit on a thumbnail. Remember Hyundai committing 25,000 Atlas robots to its own factories at CES. Its own labor union has since said, and I am quoting them, "Remember that without labor management agreement, not a single robot using new technology will be allowed to enter the workplace." The union's own words for what is coming were, "a huge employment shock." So the largest committed humanoid deployment in the world right now is blocked. Not by technology, and not by cost, but by the people who currently do the work. And this is not a fringe position. IEEE Humanoids, the field's own flagship academic conference, made labor displacement its defining theme this year. The program is built around who deploys these systems, under what labor conditions, with what safety certification, and with what economic consequences for workers. That is the engineers asking, not activists. To be fair to the other side of this, some of it genuinely works already. Agility's Digit runs at 9 customer facilities, with more than 65,000 cumulative operating hours. At GXO in Flowery Branch, Georgia, it has moved over 100,000 totes. Toyota, Schaeffler, Mercado Libre and Amazon are all on the customer list, and more than $300 million of orders are contracted. So here is where 2026 actually leaves us. The robots are real, they are being built by the hour, and the thing standing between them and your workplace is not a breakthrough. It is a negotiation. 2 years ago we were asking whether these machines could ever do the job. Now we are arguing about who signs off when they do. Tell me which of those 8 you think is the biggest deal, because I do read them. Subscribe, and I will have number 2 ready the moment the next batch lands.